just like Curious George. That's a great connection.
I wonder whose cat it is.
Oh, you're asking a question about the book. Okay. So sometimes when we're reading a story and we're curious, we're kind of wondering. Well, be thinking about those things when I'm reading this book, Charlie Anderson. You have one more thing to say before we get started? What?
I wonder if the cat is the one telling the story.
Okay, so you're wondering. She's already wondering who the narrator in the story is, and that the narrator is who's telling the story.
Is this one that's sad?
Well, I'm going to let you decide whether it's a sad story for yourself. Okay?
It kind of looks like my cat always has like doing the same movie, and then my stepsister has one, and it's good too, and it's funny.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to read Charlie Anderson, and I'm going to wonder some things. And if I stop and have a question about something, I'm going to write it up here. You guys are going to have great burning questions in your mind too, and we're going to save those for later, okay? All right, Charlie Anderson. I'm really concerned that you're not going to be able to see. Are you going to be able to see there, you think? If you think you can see there, then you can stay there. But if you can't, then you should probably move to a new spot. I don't know, that looks good. Maybe somebody can squeeze over here if you say, excuse me. Let's make it quick, though. All right, Charlie Anderson. One cold night, a cat walked out of the woods, up the steps, across the deck, and into the house where Elizabeth and Sarah lived. I'm already wondering things. First of all, I'm wondering where the cat is coming from, and I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of creepy because I'm noticing how it's dark. I think it's kind of weird that the door is cracked, so I'm wondering why that is. Do you guys leave your door cracked at your house at night? No. He curled up next to their fireplace to get warm. He watched the 6 o'clock news on TV. He tasted their dinner. He tried out their beds. And the author's kind of showing us that normal things that cats do, right? Curling up by the fire, eating a plate of food that's been left out. He decided to stay, and the girls named him Charlie. Every morning, Charlie disappeared into the woods again. I have a question. Raise your hand if you have a question. What are you wondering?
How did he open the door?
How did he open the door? Well, remember it was cracked. The door was cracked open. I'm wondering where Charlie's going, because it says he decided to stay, and the girls named him Charlie. Every morning, Charlie disappeared into the woods. So, whoops. Yep, thank you. Let me use blue. That didn't select it. It says every morning, Charlie, what? Disappeared.
Into the woods.
So my question is, where is Charlie going? Okay. At night, when he came home, Elizabeth brushed him clean, fed him dinner, and made a space for him at the foot of her bed. He liked Elizabeth's bed the best. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and hear him purring in the dark. Okay, so Elizabeth's sister is Sarah. If Charlie liked Elizabeth the best, I wonder how that made Sarah feel. Think it in your mind. So I'm going to write my question. It said in the story, he liked whose bed? Elizabeth's bed. So my question is, how did that make Sarah feel? And I'm also wondering, why did he like Elizabeth the best? So he liked Elizabeth's bed the best. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and hear him purring in the dark. Sarah called him baby and dressed him up in doll clothes. Do you think that's something that cats like?
No.
So maybe that's a clue as to why.
He doesn't like Sarah.
It doesn't mean he doesn't like her, but he does like Elizabeth the best, it says. When it snowed, Elizabeth and Sarah's mother heated Charlie's milk before he would leave for the woods. He grew fatter and fatter, and every day he purred louder and louder. What do we know about when cats purr? What's that mean? What's that mean? They're comfortable. What else?
They like the bed and they purr.
Okay, when they like something?
They're happy.
When they're happy? Great. On weekends, the girls stayed with their father and stepmother in the city. They wanted to bring Charlie with them, but their mother said that he would miss the woods. Charlie's a country cat, she told him. One stormy night, Charlie didn't come home. Elizabeth and Sarah stayed out on the deck and called his name, but no Charlie. Where was he? Why wouldn't he come out of the woods? Was he all right? Elizabeth and Sarah are starting to ask a lot of questions in this story, aren't they? Is that making you wonder too? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I don't know what was that. It looks like they're holding
Yeah, so that's a flashlight if you can't see that very well. They have ponchos on because it's raining outside and they're sitting on their step. All night long, Elizabeth listened to the rain beating on the roof and the wind rattling the windows. Was he cold? Was he hurt? Where was Charlie? So they have more questions. In the morning, Elizabeth and Sarah looked for him. They asked the lady down the road if she'd seen their cat. She said no and offered them cookies, but they were too worried to eat anything, even her chocolate chip cookies. They went to the new house on the other side of the woods. Have you seen our cat? They asked. His name is Charlie. He's very fat and has gray striped fur. They're still wondering about their cat also. Well, we have a cat with gray striped fur, said the man. But his name's not Charlie. It's Anderson. He's upstairs asleep on our bed. They heard a meow, and down the stairs came a very fat cat with gray striped fur. Charlie, Sarah and Elizabeth cried. No, that's Anderson, said the woman. We've had him for 7 years. Right, Anderson? He looked at her and began to purr. But it's Charlie, Sarah said. He looked at her and purred louder. Is he ever here at night? Elizabeth asked. Well, Anderson is a hunter, said the man. He prowls the woods at night. Well, Charlie sleeps in my bed at night, Elizabeth said. He leaves for the woods after breakfast. Well, Anderson comes home at breakfast time, said the woman. He leaves right after dinner. They all looked at the cat. He stared at their feet, very happy and very fat. They call him Charlie Anderson now. Did you put the clues together in your mind? What do we know about this story?
We know that he came there after dinner and then he came back after dinner.
What can you tell me about it?
He had an owner that he liked the other house too.
Okay.
I wonder if Charlie leaves in the morning and goes through the woods to that other house. Then at night he goes back there.
Is that what you guys were wondering when you read the story too?
Yeah.
Is that what was happening?
Yeah.
That Charlie was a sneaky cat, wasn't he?
He was like too old.
I know. He had like 2 families. He was going back and forth. What do you think his reason was for going back and forth?
That he was going back and forth because he liked that house and he liked to sleep in that house and he liked the food at that house.
Yeah. I think he loved both of them probably about the same, right? So what do you think, and let's think for just a minute before you throw your hands in the air. So what do you think the author wanted us to learn from this story? Put your hands down and just think about it for just a second. Do you remember what he was telling us on the last page? When we read a story, usually the author has some kind of a message or some kind of a lesson that we learn or the character learns. What are you thinking?
Kind of like it's just kind of like get off.
Do you need some more time to think? Put your thoughts together. Okay, go ahead.
That you have a pet, but you can't keep it. You can't keep it forever.
Okay, you have a pet. You can't keep it forever. Okay.
That if you see, maybe if you see another cow that's been stray, don't pick it up because it could be somebody else's, and if they keep coming back and gone, it's probably somebody else's.
Yeah, that's kind of your connection, you're thinking, your message from the story. Well, I think the author had a really, it's a really tough message to get. So let me read the last page again, because sometimes we're so excited by what we learn from the story, like the outcome, the answer to our question, that we kind of miss the meaning. So let me read again. Just like Elizabeth and Sarah, Charlie has 2 houses, 2 beds, 2 families that love him. He's a lucky cat. Does that change your thinking about what the author wants you to learn from the story? What are you thinking?
He probably likes sometimes because he can sleep in both houses. He can sleep, but he can eat at both houses and he can play at both houses. And the author probably has a cat that probably is like that too.
Okay, because then can any of us make a connection with that? I can kind of make a connection with that. Sometimes, when I was younger, there were adults, and I would love being at one house, and then you'd go to another house and enjoy that one too. Yes?
My cat's also an inside-out cat, and sometimes he disappears.
Okay, and tell me how what does that have to do with the author's, the lesson that he learned in the story? Can you think about that? Or are you just going to tell a story? I want to hear your story, but hang on one second. Yes, ma'am, you.
Well, it's like he's kind of greedy, and my cat was greedy because
He is kind of greedy.
because he liked sleeping on my bed whenever I wanted to go, whenever I wanted to sleep.
Yeah, so he's living the good life, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's happy at one house, happy at another house. He does have 2 families that love him very, very much. All right, let's think about the questions that yes, ma'am, you have something else to say?
But how can he can have 2 families if the girls and the woman and the man can't be one family together because they're not in the same family? So how can he go to each house and have them as one family?
Can somebody answer that for her? How can you be at 2 different houses and have 2 different families that love you? Yes, ma'am.
Charlie can leave like he usually did after breakfast.
I'm sorry, tell me again.
Charlie can usually leave like he did after breakfast.
Yeah, right. The time. He could share their time, right?
He could be sneaky.
Sneaky? Well, isn't that like our lives too? Like you go to a grandparent's house or something, and their family, right?
Back to your room.
And then you can just go back to your home. That's exactly right. Yes, ma'am. Or sir. Goodness gracious.
That but you can have 2 families because maybe you can have 2 families. Maybe you have 2 families one is your actual dad, but then one is your stepmom.
That's-
One is your actual mom, and one is your stepdad.
That's right. People that love you and you want to spend time with don't always have to be right inside your home.
They don't always have to be with you. They can live in Oklahoma and
they could be in Oklahoma. That's right. That's a really long way for a cat to travel, though. Don't you think? He might not make it back home by breakfast. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's think about our questions we had. Every morning Charlie disappeared. But where is Charlie going? Now, sometimes when we have questions and we're wondering things about a story, sometimes the author answers our questions and sometimes he doesn't answer our questions. So we have to put together like the clues and kind of make a good guess about what we think the answer is. Did the author tell us where Charlie's going in this story?
Yes.
Did we find out?
Yes.
Okay, raise your hand if you can tell me where Charlie was going.
To the other house.
To his other family. Okay, I'm going to write that here. To his other family. Okay, so the other thing that we read in this story that kind of made me wonder, it said he liked Elizabeth's bed the best. So my question is, how did that make Sarah feel? Did the author answer that question for us?
No.
Did he tell us how Sarah felt?
No.
I'm concerned you're more worried about your finger than you're learning. Okay, are you ready to listen? Good. All right, so can we decide? Can we put the clues together and make a good guess about how she felt?
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to answer that question?
I think she felt sad.
Okay, Sarah may have felt sad, so I'm going to write that on my sheet. Whoa, Nellie. I need to erase. I'm just going to hit it. Sarah may have felt sad. Who else was wondering something about the story? Had a question in their mind the whole time I was reading. No one else was wondering or curious?
Why he had another family?
Okay, so did the author tell us why he had a different family? He didn't answer that, did he? But we can kind of put the clues together and decide what the answer is. Why do you think he had a different family?
So he needed one place and needed and sleep at another.
Okay, so your thinking is maybe because of the food. Maybe my answer would be love. We just have to put clues together and kind of figure it out for ourselves. Yeah, good guess. Yep.
Well, where did the girl, like, so I know he walked into the house, but
Taking a nap?
are the girls, like, are they twins, or?
I kind of wondered that the first time I read that too. Tell your friends again, because I think some of them might not have heard you.
Are the girls twins?
Okay, did the author answer that for us?
No. Maybe.
Did he tell us in the story that they were twins or not twins? No, he didn't tell us, so we kind of have to decide for ourselves. What was your question?
Which family did he like more?
And remember at the end he purred for both of them.
But he
Did the author answer that question that you had?
Yes.
Did the author tell us which one he loved more? I didn't hear him if he
Purred that loud. The cat purred louder.
he purred and then he purred louder for the other one. So that could be a good guess that maybe he likes one, but we don't know for sure.
Maybe he likes my Sarah and Elizabeth better because that other family had him for 7 years, and at the beginning of the book, Charlie just went to that house, and that was the first time Charlie met him.
And you are putting together a lot more clues than I did when I was reading the story. So you probably have an even better guess than me.
Whenever the other family didn't have him, did he really come from the woods or just that, like, from the family? Well, no, the other family went through the woods too.
Yeah, it doesn't tell us that either in the story. So that's one that we have to make a good guess on.
I have another question. Why did he go into that house and eat their food and watch the news and do all
Yeah, did the author tell us that?
No.
So that's another one where we just have to make a
Yes.
a good guess. Yep. You have another question? Okay.
Why in the book? Why with the family that first had him? Why would they? Why would they even? Why would they think he? Like, why would they think he would come back? Come back if he's already been gone and then at the other family's house?
Did the author say? So that's one you have to make a
Good.
good guess and decide. So why would we want to ask questions while we're reading? Think about that for just a second. How much more time? What do you want me to do? Oh, okay.
That's funny. If you've got 15 minutes, if you want it. If you don't, we can. I
Okay.
didn't know if you were gonna have them writing.
I'll do like 6-ish,
Okay.
maybe. Okay. Okay, someone tell me, why would you want to ask questions while you read? Ms. Holcomb, ever read anything to you or with you and you're wondering and, yes,
To find the answer and know more about the book.
okay, to know more. Why else would we want to ask questions while we read?
Curious.
Okay. But when we're curious, we want to know more details, to know more, maybe to find an answer. Yes.
To
Need a minute? Okay, shoot your hand up when you have it again.
to think, to know what's gonna, because you can put all those things together. Like if you ask a question and they might answer it, you can probably think in your head what's gonna happen, and what's not gonna happen.
Okay, so you're kind of using questions to help you make a prediction. Okay. Gosh, I didn't know second graders had such fantastic thinking. Oh. Yes, ma'am.
To understand more.
To understand.
More about this.
Okay, so if you're reading along and you ask yourself a question, you can make sure that you're understanding what it is the author's wanting you to know. All right. You know, you guys had all those fantastic questions. Some of you shared lots of questions. Some of you only shared one or two. I want you to pick out your most burning question that you had while we were reading Charlie Anderson. And then I'm going to have you go back to your seat and I'm going to have you fill out the chart and write your question down just like I showed you, okay? Yes. You have a connection, okay?
One time we had a cat, it was a stray cat, and we didn't know whose it was. And my stepsister
Nick.
Caitlin, she named it Bubbles, and it ran away and we can't find it.
Darn it. And I can so connect with that too. And that's the awesome thing about reading. You know, when we're reading the story with Charlie Anderson and we're asking questions, we're also making connections to the story. We're making predictions. We do all kinds of fantastic things while we're reading. All right, so if you have a summer birthday, June, July, or August, go sit down, please. September, October, November. December, January, February.
My friend,
March, April, May.
her dad lives in Texas, and she can only see